inside the studio of a famous architect designer in Kuching. It has the ambience of a longhouse with all the native arts and crafts. This is the studio of Edric Ong Lian Bing, a fifth generation of the famous Ong clan started by Ong Yu Hai. Edric has established himself as one of the foremost designers for hand-printed eco-textiles and anything cultural. Born and raised in Kuching, he studied in St. Thomas's School before obtaining his architecture degree from Singapore. As an architect, he left his mark designing several landmarks before moving on to his present field of interest. Much sought after for various forums, conferences and exhibitions, he has visited many countries to promote the arts and crafts of Sarawak. Many architecture landmarks and events can be linked to him. These range from famous buildings like the Kuching Old Airport to events like the Rainforest World Music Festival. Want to know more? Well, watch on. You were trained as an architect. What made you interested in this arts type of activities like designing textiles and things like this?
Well, I think even though when I was doing my training in university as an architect, I began to see the things around me because part of the course of architecture in the University of Singapore, the first year was asking you to appreciate forms and also look around your culture and appreciate the shapes of baskets and other things. And so when I came back on holiday, my eyes began to be open and I explored and I started collecting antique ceramics for its shapes and for its glazes and then beads. And then I went on to appreciate the Iban Puakumbu textiles. And so learning more about the textiles, I realized that there is such a wealth of culture behind the textile. And so that got me more and more interested in Iban Puakumbu textiles and also the hand-painted barks. And so that got me interested in also then beginning to design my own textiles. Also in a way influenced by my cousin, the living legend Edric Ong, who at that time was doing batik painting, and his very close friend Michael Lim. They were the pioneers of using batik technique in art form. So who is the biggest influence in my life? I would say would be my mother, Tan Lee Keng. So my mom I was very close to, and then I guess it's because of her. She's a very immaculately dressed nyonya, if you like, because the lay gardener would call her nyonya. And she dresses well, first in sarong kebaya, and then she designed her own style of kebaya during her later days. And so I would go shopping with her for her material, and she would ask me, what do you think of this color, that color? So that was my influence in my interest in fashion. Yeah. But my dad too, because my dad was the one who took me around to the interior of Sarawak, he being the inland fisheries director. And during our school vacation time, when he was going outstation, then sometimes I would take along, and that was my first encounter in staying in an Iban longhouse and observing what their rituals and their ceremonies and what kind of things that they have in their community. Is there a favorite? I would say maybe it is my discovery of natural dyes in textiles. And from my studying and association with Iban weavers, finding out how they do their natural dyes for their wakumbu, then I developed my own style and expression and created my own designs. And through a process of self-learning and doing workshops with other textile designers overseas, I then learned the techniques of shibori, clamp design and hand drawing and so on and so forth. So that has become my niche in my artistic expression. First of all, the Kuching International Airport, which has been torn down and now it becomes another standard futuristic airport. But the original Kuching International Airport, I worked on as a young architect. My firm at that time, Malaysian Associate Architect, was working with foreign consultants as well. But the roof form of the old Kuching Airport, if you remember, was inspired by our river crafts, our tambang. Because the airport is a place of travel, communication, right? And so we thought that it is appropriate that the river boats, being the means of transport on our Sarawak River, would be a good inspiration. So the roof forms were like a series of tambang for that particular building. The Sarawak Cultural Village is a living museum concept. And again, we created the lake in the center because water is very much part of our means of communication in Sarawak. If you go into the interior, before you have airplanes, before you have the roads, people go by boats, right? So we have that feature of that lake in the center and position the 7 community houses around it. Yes, I was one of the founder members together with my brother Edgar and Randy Roost, who is the artistic musical director. I think.
So what inspired the idea to come about?
The Rainforest World Music Festival is a celebration of our music heritage, right? It is, of course, at that time, at the beginnings of tourism, we thought that it is good to position. And at that time, there were a few well-known world music. The genre of world music, WORLD, world music, has become very hot at that time when we were starting. There was WOMAD, WOMAD, and a few others. And so we said, why? Let's start something of our own to draw the attraction to Sarawak. It would be a showcase for our musical heritage of our indigenous people, and the cross-fertilization with other world musicians would be very fruitful. And so it has become like a brand in the world music.
In your opinion, what is your greatest achievement so far?
My greatest achievement? Well, I think that architecturally, when people start tear down your buildings, you know your time is over.
Oh dear.
Well, when they started to tear down the old airport, you know that your time in that is over. So, but architectural wise, I think that maybe one of the legacy that we have done is the Damai Holiday Inn at the time, the hillside pavilions based on the Long House, the Malay House, the Betayu Round House. So those were very unique. Then if you, maybe you don't know, but I also designed the Pelagus Rapids Resort.
Oh.
But that also, after the owners didn't properly maintain it, and so that's become in disrepair. But I was very much involved in conservation of historic buildings. So the pavilion the Madrasah Melayu,
Mm.
the Islamic Museum. Those were my projects before.
Oh.
On the cultural side, I think my greatest achievement would be the revival of Iban weaving.
Mm.
It was already on the downturn. They were not doing natural dyes anymore. So by involving Atelier and the Iban Women's Association in reviving the Iban textiles and then introducing silk to them instead of just weaving in cotton. I think people in the textile world recognize me for that.
Mm.
Yeah, for promoting Iban Buat Bumbu.
How about the future? Any plans?
The future. The plan is that to mentor some younger people who would take on the challenge of promoting our arts and our crafts. Anyone who is interested that comes to me now for advice, I'm advising them, whether they are like art students, university students who want to do research and all that. So that's my role now, like a sensei. I lecture a lot in Taiwan and in many other places, India, all over the place. And that's what I try to do, which is to inculcate, promote, and to encourage the younger generation